Agency clients I talk to often want more strategic consulting from the agencies that they hire. At the same time, many agencies feel like the services they're delivering are often undervalued by the clients that they serve. If both of these are true, then why are so many agencies caught in what Pete Caputa calls the tactician's trap, where it feels like you're on an endless hamster wheel, selling implementation services without being valued for the strategic insights you can provide to your clients? Today's guest, Max Traylor, known as the Consultant's Consultant, unpacks a maybe slightly controversial chapter from his book, The Agency Survival Guide, entitled Burn Your Implementation Business to the Ground. Now, whether or not you're ready to do that quite yet, in today's conversation, you'll hear Max explain his own journey from selling marketing services to productized consulting, the one simple tweak that led to a 10x price increase for one consulting package, and the 3 steps to start selling strategy that you're already capable of delivering. To kick things off, let's hear from Max about when he says hitting his goals as an agency owner just led to more exhaustion and burnout.
It became important when I wanted a personal life. I was running my marketing agency, and I met my to-be wife. We have 2 kids now, and I grew up with my dad working from home, and he would always say, "Look, we can go to Disney World," because I put my personal life first, and I built my business around that. And early in my career, I was sort of I was enamored in the orange pom-poms, and the goals were headcount and revenue. But the dark circles under my eyes would increase every time we hit our goals. My personal life got worse. So it was when I was like, okay, I can't just dedicate my entire life to this concept of growth by revenue and headcount. I have to carve out something for my personal life. So then you look at at an agency. Where does return on effort, value for hours put in, or value for effort put in? And it's not in the commoditized creation of content. I think AI has finally burnt the last little crisp of content opportunity. Like, it ain't there anymore. And I think there's a bunch of other things that have systematically been destroyed by AI and technology that used to be viable services. User experience, just ask AI. I think it's all done for on the implementation side. I'm pretty polarized, in that, partly because I think it's fun, and there is a chapter in my book called "Burn Your Implementation Business to the Ground." I think there's a place for it, but ultimately, in the face of disruption, AI, nearbound, things like that, your relationship with a client's executive team will save you. And they do not care about marketing. They don't. So your ability to speak their language, to consult with them, to help them make decisions, decide where to spend money and with whom, that's where your power comes from. That's called consulting. That's called strategic services. And I noticed that part of my business was the most profitable. People treated me like a big boy. But it's where most people don't create process and systems around.
Interesting. So tell us, when was this that you kind of had this shift in your career? What year was this? Where had you been? And then talk to me a little bit about the story I've heard you tell before about kind of the impetus for the Content Marketer's Blueprint, kind of where that came from, and what you were solving for, and what it kind of led you to that has now made you, such an evangelist for this concept of productizing your consulting services, so much so that the chapter of your book, I love that, Burn Your Implementation Business to the Ground. Give us a little context there and lead us into a little bit more of the story.
Yeah, March 2022. Mm-hmm. Inbound conference is what, September?
Yep, typically.
So March 2022, our agency was in the Boston area, so we'd drive in a lot and hunt for business, give salespeople gifts and stuff, and they'd call us up. So we got a call from one person saying, "Look, there's this churn program, Operation Stop the Churn, and there's 20 clients that have already said they're going to cancel HubSpot. Do you want to talk to them?" Hell yeah, we want to talk to them. Now we got like 2 employees. They're burnt out. They're already like, 200% capacity. So what can you do for 20 clients that have content, people, and technology, and it's still not working? Ask them, hey, did you write down like a plan for how all of this stuff fits together? The answer was no. I had some business partners that fresh out of Silicon Valley, they turn systems into. So anyway, we had this idea that, look, the only thing we can do for these 20 companies is to run a very efficient strategic process for giving them a technology strategy and answering the question and documenting how does content, people, and the technology fit together to actually accomplish your business goals. We came up with a 5-hour process. We sold it for $2,500.
And what was the 5-hour process? Kind of workshop style with the client, where you ask them questions, you take them through?
Basic consulting. I mean, there's only one way to consult. You align leadership on their priorities, then you benchmark their capability, then you create a roadmap of solutions. But at that point, there was nothing that we put into that strategy that wasn't posted on HubSpot blogs. It was how we positioned it. It was calling out the problem of, you have all these pieces, but there's no documented like how it fits together. And so when we started, it was March. I remember we sold the first one, $2,500. Then we said, okay, we're going to make this specifically for our higher education clients.
Okay.
And by positioning it for a certain type of someone, we charged $30,000, multiplied the price by 10 plus, and ran the same process, because we noticed that the value of strategy is irrelevant to how much money you're wasting on bad implementation. And the amount of money that higher education is putting into full-time marketing employees that do absolute nothing, huge. And you could probably charge one. It's like an insurance policy is the way I look at strategy. Is it worth 10% of your overall marketing budget to actually make that 90% work?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I've got a friend, Dan Sanchez, who was at an agency with me for a bit, and he came from higher education marketing. And I think if you were listening to this, he'd be nodding along with, the amount of waste and the amount of spinning your wheels and implementation that's not really working, specifically in that sector. Not one I know really well, but friends like him, I think, from what I've heard, very much.
Well, I
agree
know
with
it
you.
well enough that I will never go back. I have part of the reason I am on my own is because I have a very short tolerance for nonsense, corporate decision by committee, like everything's clear, we should do it. Oh, no, we have to go jump through these hoops. So, that's why I'm generally unemployable, and why I work with, smaller clients who I don't have to go through that, political realm. But yeah, the story is, we found strategy, and then, the second word for me is productize, because strategy generally for an organization is not scalable. For an agency, the agency principal, the smartest person in the room, is able to do strategy. And so you're not able to make it the spearhead of every client engagement, nor are you able to make it something that is retained. Strategy retainer, that's going to be the key for any agency, is to take strategy from a project to a retained strategic engagement that lives above all the tactical work that you do. That's the answer, by the way. So you have to be able to codify what's happening at that strategic level and train other people how to do it. And you might need to invest in some more expensive talent. But the good news is strategy does not play by competitive pricing rules. It plays by you make up the price rules.
Yeah, exactly. As your story kind of illustrated just a moment ago, right? As you talked about that $2,500 project, one, that's a pretty darn good hourly rate to begin with, right? Then you 10x that by the way that you package it, and you package it for a specific problem, for a specific persona, for a specific industry. You can kind of set the price as you will. I liked your point there, Max, about kind of framing it as an insurance policy and a percentage of your overall spend, and framing that to executives to look at, well, you've got to invest in the implementation and the execution, but what if there's, all this waste, or what if 100% of it doesn't drive results? By allocating 10% to spend on strategy, you can actually kind of, hedge against that a little bit. So go ahead. I can tell you.
Well, I was going to say,
there, as I was rambling.
For like agencies, most agencies have never sold before in their life. They have bid in a buying process. Someone decided that they want a website, or decided they want content, or read an article about marketing and decided they want something. So they're bidding in that process. So strategy is often the first thing that they've actually had to sell, create a reason for. So we had to short circuit that. And the really, in the beginning time, it was, okay, so you spent a bunch of money on content, people, and technology. Okay. It's not working out. Okay. Wouldn't you agree that plans are important in the success of things? Okay, show me the plan. Okay, there is no plan. Okay, so wouldn't you agree?
Glances. Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree that the first thing that we should do is a plan? Boom, you got it.
The point you were making earlier, Max, about taking strategy from a project to a retainer is really kind of the key shift in being able to productize and make more with strategic consulting. Why do you think, what are some of the limitations that folks have there? Because we see a lot of agencies between you and I in our network, they're stuck in just implementation, right? Yeah. And if they do strategy, it's very much one-off. It's not something that is repeatable. There are some talent limitations, which you spoke to already, but if you can charge more for it and you can find a way to repeat it, then the talent expense actually doesn't become a blocker. It's the productizing it to make it repeatable that I think is really the main blocker there. Would you say that's right? You can disagree with me.
They're not. This is going to trigger a lot of people, but the main problem is they're over-invested in replaceable talent.
Okay.
You're selling hours from people that can be replaced, and now they're being replaced by AI. In my generation of agency world, it was being replaced by the gig network. Mm-hmm. The Upworks and things. And the reality is it doesn't matter if they can or cannot do it better. The client's perception is there's another option that's astronomically faster and cheaper. So you're out, and they're not gonna sacrifice their pride and come back to you begging for forgiveness. They're just not. So you're out. You're out regardless of if it's the right decision or not. And so I think that's what's holding people back. I think we saw MarTech relying on growth of people. They wanted bodies in agency seats that could push buttons. And so they created training programs and evangelized and put these large agencies, body-wise, revenue-wise, on a pedestal and said, this is what you should become. The second we got money, we were out there shopping for talent. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to any of the agency consultants that actually know agencies that don't work for software companies, they say 100% keep demand above capacity intentionally. Yeah. Keep your capacity low so that you're constantly raising your prices, looking for ways to innovate and do things better, faster, cheaper. It's the opposite of what the influencing bodies, i.e. MarTech, was doing at that time. And by the way, they've completely come around. I think you've got a lot of smart people that are giving agencies much better advice. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the biggest problem is an understanding of strategy services or how to sell them at this point. Mm-hmm. It is the overinvestment in the implementation talent. So even though they know they should sell more strategy, they're driven by fear and hunger. They're driven by a need to feed the people. The last thing they want to do is let people go.
Yep.
Good people.
Because they've got capacity over
the best
demand.
People I've ever met.
Right. They've got that ratio flipped of what you were just talking about.
You got to feed people.
Yeah.
and even though you can sell a strategy for $20,000 that one person at that agency can deliver on, it's not going to contribute at all to the person that you hired to build websites.
Yep. To
the person that you hired to create content. And so mathematically it doesn't work out unless you get rid of those people, and that's a problem people are grappling with now. I think they are forced to do it by AI, but it's psychologically not a fun thing. I was never able to fire people, and so I left. I left the agency instead of firing people.
You're like, I'm going to fire myself.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. I spent 4 years building that agency, and I loved every single person that I hired and would do anything for them. So rather than saying, sorry, you are not the future, I left and did it myself.
Yeah. So if another agency owner is listening to this, they're finding themselves in that predicament that you just described, and they say, okay, maybe I do need to burn my implementation business to the ground. What are the steps to do that? How do you light the match? How do you
get your team on board?
Still survive?
Tell them tell them the truth. Get your team on board.
How so?
Your job doesn't exist anymore. Content creator, website designer, UX. You have been replaced. Sorry. There is no financial future for somebody that can be replaced by AI. Your career path. Let's be honest about your career path. You know how to do something. The next level up is how to advise other people on how to do that. The next level up is how to advise the people that sign the checks, decide who to hire, how to evaluate people that know how to do the thing. So we have to show people that there is a spectrum of tactical to strategic, and educate them that, like, you don't have a choice. You're either going to elevate yourself to be more strategic. That's going to involve new skills. We're going to have to invest in their education, in their ability to speak business, not marketing or SEO
or design or any discipline,
whatever
right?
whatever this nerd thing is. Like, people that sign checks don't care. In fact, the reason they're hiring you is because they don't care.
Right. Yeah.
So speak their language. What are your business problems? How are you making decisions about AI and marketing? How are you evaluating the vendors that you're working with? You've been there. You've been in the trenches. You can help them with those decisions, and helping people make decisions, make investments is the most valuable place that you can find yourself. So I think there needs to be a complete shift in just like reality.
So did I understand kind of that spectrum the way you laid it out, right, Max? There's doing the thing, then there's teaching other people how to do the thing, then there's advising people on how to implement the thing, how to hire people who can do the thing, and that's kind of where you go from implementation to strategy. Those kind of the 3 points on the spectrum.
Carl Sagas has a great model for it. Great agency consultant. Respect him a lot.
He's been on the show before. Super smart guy.
So Carl's got his think, teach, do.
Okay.
So think is the help people think. That's the strategy. Decision support is what I call it. Teach would then be, a lot of the early HubSpot agencies, for example, went for educational workshops in the teaching model and decided, the services, okay, we're going to scale that back.
Yep.
And then the do is the easiest to sell, but the lowest profit margin and most difficult to scale. So think is harder to sell traditionally because no one's out there in the market going, hey, let me help you to, or we actually are looking for somebody to help us think, right? Nobody goes out there and shops for consulting, really. So
I'm glad you touched on that, because that's really what I wanted to ask you next. So if you've got to realize that there's a problem, that the implementation business is at risk more and more so as disruption continues to happen, kind of one of the next things you mentioned is educate the team on that problem and the reality, but show them that there is hope, because you have this expertise and you can go from doing to teaching to thinking, going in the opposite direction on the spectrum as we were laying it out earlier. But then to connect to something you mentioned earlier, most agencies have never sold strategy. They don't know how to sell, let us help you think. So how do they then start to make that transition, assuming that they can get their team on board, start to show them the path forward, start to level them up in the areas to talk business and those sorts of things? How do they then start to sell it? Because then then and only then can you productize it and make it repeatable. How do they start to sell strategy, and what are they missing to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting out of your current centers of education. So the reason these agencies exist is because of the MarTech companies. They're the ones that put the millions of dollars into education, and in a lot of ways created the digital marketing agency as we know it today. They are value-added resellers of technology. That's what they are. Their services follow the launch of service lines. HubSpot went from marketing to sales to customer success, and then you saw the bastardization of every agency as they launched a million different services, and their positioning just went to trash. They're teaching a little bit of it, but you gotta broaden your horizons. You gotta look at people that are thought leaders in sales and consulting. How do you sell? Thought leaders in strategy and consulting, and you have to educate yourself on what that is, how to sell it, how to develop your skills in that area. It all exists. It's all out there, but you're not going to be spoon-fed that by MarTech companies.
Yeah, you were mentioning on the elsewhere in the conversation, Max, there are some people that are talking about this. Who are some of those people? Because it's kind of coming back around now. If you need to change kind of your your echo chamber, so to speak, and get some new people in that can speak to this. Like David C. Baker comes to mind. Who else are you seeing who's talking about this that you think people
Sure,
should
yeah.
follow?
So an easier transition would be agency consultants that are talking about this, because there's a whole realm of
Sure.
people that talk about selling strategy. They don't necessarily speak the agency language, so there's like gateway drugs, if you will. The David C. Bakers, Carl Sakis, anybody that's done like deep consulting work in the agency space. But those are two great ones that have books. And David Baker always talks about strategy first, and then there's all the other stuff. And my opinion is just like, why even bother with the other stuff? But I tend to be pretty polarized. And then Carl Sakis has I think a much more financial forward mind. And so talking to him about looking at these different services from a financial perspective, thinking, teaching, doing, and making decisions accordingly. I just like there's no excuse for not doing it anymore. The ability to access that information and train your people. You're already making an investment in training your people to keep up with the latest SEO changes, anything technology related. Like, you've got to have your ear to the ground, consistently invest in maintaining your skill set in that area. So you might as well support people to invest in things like facilitation, co-creation, empathy, leadership alignment, these sorts of things. But it has to be you have to get everybody involved in that decision. You can't, like I did, say, look, we need to be doing more strategy, and have 8 people looking at you going like, well, my job is content creation and website development, so now I'm looking for another job, and now you. So I did it. I was young. I didn't know anything. I just knew that the implementation business sucked, and if I wanted to make more money, I needed to be doing strategy.
Yeah. So talk to me a little bit, Max, about how you make that transition from project to then retainer when it comes to strategy, making it repeatable, making it productized. What are maybe some of the advice that you give in the book, or that you're advising people on to take maybe some of the strategy that they have done, they have sold, and making it repeatable so that it can scale, so that they can sell that $30,000 consulting project on a repeatable basis, because that's the key.
Well, the first and most practical thing to do is document how you create proposals.
Okay.
And then throw a $20,000 price tag on that process.
Okay.
That is the first thing people are doing wrong. What do they do in the proposal process? They ask their client about their situation. They interpret that situation. They come up with a scope of work, resources, all the things, and say, this is exactly how you should do it. Would you like to sign the deal? They're giving away the most strategically valuable thing during that proposal process.
Yes.
And when you give away the value, clients can say, great, see you later. They can say, great, see you later. I'm also going to implement this, but not with you. They can do all these things. So charging for that positions you as like, hey, the most valuable thing I'm going to do for you is tell you where to spend money, with who, how to do it. And subsequently, if somebody pays you to tell them what to do, they're probably going to do it. Psychologically, they're now validating that investment by saying, oh, yes, we just paid you $20,000 to tell us the roadmap of investments we should make. We're definitely going to do that, because to not do that was to admit that we wasted $20,000. And especially in a corporate setting, nobody's going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
The opposite happens when you put all that effort into a proposal process, and you're like, okay, here's the thing, sign here. And you're like, well, I'd rather keep my job. So the most obvious answer is no. So people are giving away the strategy for free. That's the most practical example of what to do first. Then I'd say level 2 is you're now charging for that strategy. And this is what I did in the early days. I'd do strategy. People would introduce me as, hi, this is Max. He's helping us with our marketing strategy. Then you'd go to implementation. You'd build a website. Hi, this is Max. He's helping us build our website. Then it came to content creation. Hi, this is Max. He's helping us write our blogs. Then it came to time to promote that content. Hi, this is Max. He's helping us write our tweets. So you are identified you are profiled as the lowest level activity that you do. And that's where people screw up. They do strategy and then they go into implementation and they don't realize that they can never get back to strategy. The tweeting max is not invited to the board meeting
Yeah.
to update people on how the tweets are going.
And that's why you're a big proponent of not kind of mixing the strategy and retain the implementation, but do it more efficiently. Like your advice for agencies that are willing to make this turn is go all in on strategy, and then you refer out the implementation.
Separate. If you're gonna do both, separate. And if you if you look at large agencies, there's a conflict of interest. They'll create a separate consulting organization specifically for that reason. You can't invite a website vendor to a board meeting about where to spend marketing money, because what's that website vendor going to say? I have an idea. Let's build a completely new website. That's amazing. And there's all this new technology. Let's invest. So there's bias. There's a conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. So you have to separate it. And there's the first thing that you need to do is separate it in your proposals. People that make decisions are not going to read your silly 20-page proposal. They're just not. They're going to flip to the last page. They're going to look at the dollar sign. They're going to look at the word next to it, and it says website. And they're going to go, I can get my website for cheaper. It doesn't matter how strategically positioned you are or the relationship you have with the person you think is the decision maker. So you need a dollar sign, and you need strategy next to it. That will solidify your position as an indispensable partner, as a trusted advisor. You'll have access to the people that know what's going on, and you can protect your price premiums, your price premiums in that way. So that's like level 2 is being able to sell that strategy first, and then it's as simple as when you deliver that strategy, you say, "Hey, that was valuable, right? Now you've got clarity. Now we understand where to spend our money. Sign here. We'll do that again every quarter." Because that right there, the thing that you just felt, that's the most valuable thing that we can do. We can get anybody to implement this. There's thousands of agencies out there. AI could do this. Sign here. Let's do it every quarter. That's really it's like they're so close. People that do strategy first and then go into implementation. All they have to do is say, we're going to do that every quarter.
I like that line. Was that valuable? Yes, because you just decided on it and signed on it and paid me for it.
Would you like to do that again?
Yes. Going back to the drug dealer analogy, like, well, that was good, right? You want another?
Yeah, right. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah.
Right. But they're so thinking about all those employees that they have and paying their salaries. Mm-hmm. That's where the focus is. They know they have to do strategy because if they don't, the implementation is going to fail, and they have to charge for that. It's easy for them to validate that because it's their time, and they need to charge for that.
Yeah.
But then after that, they're like, oh, we'll just hand it off to this army of replaceable, not profitable people that are probably going to leave in the next year anyway, and that's where they get screwed. Mm-hmm. And
I think you've pointed to market pressures that we can all identify, and listeners today, I'm sure, are feeling. They're looking at what AI is doing. They're looking at the perception caused by AI. Maybe some of our customers, some of our clients are saying, oh yeah, AI can do that. And you're thinking, no, AI can't necessarily do that yet, but it doesn't matter. That perception is important. And I think that mirrors research that we did last year here at teamwork.com in our State of Agency Operations report. More and more agencies are reporting that it is becoming harder and harder to meet client demands. So the client demands are going up. They're facing pricing pressure that's bringing that down, and they're getting squeezed on both sides, right? And so I guess my question, Max, is that kind of a fair summary of the agencies and consultants that you're talking to? They're feeling that same pressure. Is that kind of the why, the indicator that you should be thinking about this, as extreme as it sounds, to burn your implementation business to the ground, quote unquote? I mean, are those the sorts of things that you're hearing in conversations with agency owners?
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what's possible.
What do you mean by that?
Reality is relevant. What matters is what the client perceives as possible. If a client hears that AI can take this podcast and turn it into 20 clips that are better than anything that your post-production team can create, that client's going to fire Logan's team.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if it's real. And
Exactly.
there's so much validation, and there's this, there's this stigma around AI that it could do anything, and there's robots, and honestly, most of it's like true. So like that's the scary part, is that like most of what people say is true. Like it's just the beginning.
Yeah. It's only getting better. It's like I was talking to some other marketing friends a few weeks back when OpenAI didn't release, but they announced Sora. Did you see this? The
No, I don't
text.
know anything about it. I
So
just know
this
that
was
like
text to video. And like the initial clips looked fantastic. Like basically like show me a video of two woolly mammoths walking through snowy tundra during the ice age, right? Or show me
yeah.
a Japanese businesswoman walking down a busy street in a major metro area. And like you look closely, there are some things. There's this and that's not perfect, or certain aspects that aren't even good, but for the most part it was like, holy cow, this was generated by AI with
So you got
just
firms
text.
that charge 30 grand for that. And it's like, sure, you can produce a better product, but like 30 grand, and they can do it in 10 seconds. Like that's a paradigm shift that we're that we're confronted by
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Speaking
And
of paradigm
so
shifts, I mean, I've been just dying to kind of ask you this, because you and I have had separate conversations where you mentioned this, that like the need for strategy follows closely behind disruption in the market. And so we've talked a little bit about why AI is that disruption that should lead you to wanting to be selling and delivering more productized strategy and consulting. What are some of the other trends, some of the other disruptions that you think agencies, especially maybe marketing agencies, should be thinking about, where they could actually take advantage of this, and it's not all bad news that you need to burn what was the business to the ground?
yeah, I think this outbound to inbound thing that HubSpot and others dump millions of dollars into, that's dominated like the last 10 years at least of the marketing narrative. And but all along the way, people were like, "Oh, well, now that there's all this content, like, how can we trust it?" There's all this content out there, and so what that has done is finally people are like, "Well, I don't trust content. Who can I trust? I trust people that I have relationships with." And so now, if you want to call it nearbound, Jared Fuller's got this new book out, but there's been a lot of trends around partner marketing, or as I would call it, just listening to people. Like outbound was listening to sales, and then inbound was like listening to content, and then nearbound or partner marketing is just listening to people that I already work with. So I think there's been this growing emphasis on show me the case study. And if the
Yes.
person I'm already working with recommends you, then like, let's do it. Sure, they could do their research. They could find the content, and they're going to read that content going, oh, that sounds pretty good. I don't know if I can trust it. I don't know if it's AI. I don't know if it's a Mary marketer. I don't know who it is. But I'd rather, at this point, I'd rather just, ask. I'd rather ask somebody that's already done the research and can already vouch for somebody. So I think that represents a new opportunity for professional service organizations to look at their, whatever it is, their software clients or whatever, and say, hey, there's a whole new paradigm shift, and we need to get with your executive team, and we need to help you make some big changes around how you invest and the people that you work with, all those consulting decisions. What we can't do is be like, hey, we should use this AI tool to create content faster. It's like, great, why do we pay you again? I
Yeah.
read that blog.
Yeah. 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 I think you're right there. There is a big paradigm shift, and I think it does have a lot to do with trust, right? Data was the new oil, as the quote goes from whoever the consultant was, as the rise of digital marketing really happened. I'm sure Jared quoted that in his book. I've heard him, with that mantra before, but trust is really replace data as what is fueling things there. I mean, you talk about case studies and stuff like that. Like something I just saw last week, Sam Shepler and his team at Testimonial Hero, an agency that's got a really nice productized service around testimonial videos.
Joel's gonna love this because I think case studies are trash at this point. Like I'll take back what I said, because I pride myself on having like 70 some odd recommendations on LinkedIn. I closed a client the other day. He was like, "Oh yeah, I just called one of those people." You called them? What'd they say? And they were like, "Oh, they raved about you. So now I'm ready to move forward." So you can write a case, but people are like, they see a video, they're like, "Oh, this is like a paid actor." I don't know if this is an actor.
Yep.
I don't know if this is a client of yours that just had like a mediocre experience, but you put them on video, so now they're saying great things. Like people don't trust anything that they see. They're going to want to get on. You should get on the phone with a recent past customer and be like, "Tell me the truth." And if everything you say is sunshine and rainbows, then you're not telling me the truth, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, I think both of those. I think the acquisition of Case Study Buddy by Testimonial Hero shows that there's a need in the market for people to generate content that can be trusted, because it's highlighting those who's, right? It's not highlighting the company. It's not all about the brand. If you're doing that sort of social proof content, to your point, just because they see the social proof doesn't mean that they trust it, right? Like gone are the days you could say, this quote from a 500-person manufacturing company, right? Like no, absolutely not. But even when you list the name and the company and they're speaking and you're seeing them on camera, as that team does, like there's still a level of distrust to where they want to pick up the phone and talk to that person. And so,
it's a necessary, so it's necessary, but it's not enough.
Exactly.
You need that list. I need that list of 75 clients that say great things. But the real test is when someone randomly picks one of those people and calls them.
Yeah, emails them, LinkedIn DMs them, whatever the case is.
Yeah, so I think that's this nearbound concept, or partner marketing, is like the emphasis is on maintaining those relationships. They're not my client anymore. They were my client 3 years ago. But if I maintain that relationship, if I continue to provide value in maybe unpaid ways, or these things, when they get that call, they will be my evangelist.
Yeah.
And that is an expense for a company or for me that takes effort, takes time, takes money to maintain those relationships. And I think that should be, that's where the opportunity is for professional service providers, is to recognize that shift in consumer behavior and not say, "I've got this new AI tool."
Right. Yeah.
Say like, "Look, everyone's got the AI tools. Let me do this workshop with your leadership team. I'll charge you $20,000, but I'll help you get absolutely clear on the one thing, the one tool that will make the biggest impact on your organization." Yeah. That's consulting.
Yes. Awesome. I love the way that you sum that up there, because I wanted to bring that back to, we're kind of going on this tangent about the disruption and the change that we're seeing in marketing, as some people have kind of dubbed from outbound to inbound to nearbound, the shift from the how economy to the who economy. What does that mean for professional service firms and agencies listening to this? It means exactly what you just said there. Back it up a couple of seconds if you're listening to this, and listen how Max just framed it up, what you need to do to take advantage of that disruption and actually make money off of it, be seen as valuable, and be able to do it repeatably. That's a great place to transition.
Yeah,
Max,
I'll make it even simpler. Like you put a $ next to, "I am going to help you sell in the who economy," whatever buzzword, there's a shift. I'm going to help you figure that out. That's consulting.
Yes.
I'm going to help you think, Carl Sakis. Thank you.
I'm going to help you think about, what to do and what your strategy should be based on this big shift in the market, right?
Yeah.
And that can be related to AI. That can be related to nearbound and the shift to the who economy. That can be related to other disruption, but that's a great way to frame it.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't care if you pay me to implement it.
Yes.
In
It's
fact,
almost
it is
the selling
important
point.
that I remain indifferent
Yeah.
to the decision you make.
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, as we round it out today, Max, I want to hit you with our final two segments. So we always ask our Agency Life Fast Five. So we've got our rapid fire round of questions that I have not prepped you for, but I'm sure you're a pretty quick thinker. You're a pretty
We
good
could edit
rant
this later. This might get me in trouble.
All right. If someone gave you an extra, number one of our Fast Five, Max, is if someone gave you an extra 10 grand a month to spend on your business right now, where would you use that?
Golf membership.
I knew you would go there. All right. Number two, what are some of your all-time favorite business books, especially that you're recommending to agency owners and founders?
That would be Business of Expertise, David Baker. That would be Go Giver, OG from not Go Giver. It's an original gangster book.
The Go Giver.
Yeah, Bob Berg, good dude. And I think you got to go with The Newbie. I think you got to go with Nearbound, Jared Fuller. I think those are the big ones.
Those are three
You
great ones.
Inc. Look,
Okay.
I forget who wrote it, but You Inc. is one of the coolest books I read. Back in the day. You Incorporated.
Okay. I love it, man. All right. 4 new to add to the growing pile of book recommendations that we have gotten from each and every guest on this show. It's one of my favorite parts. All right. Number 3, what's one mistake you've made in running your agency that you'll never forget, Max?
Partnering. Like I separate from like partnering with
Other
third parties.
organization. No, you're talking about business
Legally
partner.
binding yourself to a business partner that you know nothing about for no reason at all.
All right. That is a story we'll have to explore in a follow-up episode. So teaser, cliffhanger here. Maybe we'll unpack that one in a future
I've just
one.
triggered some. I've just
I'm
triggered
sure.
a lot of people.
There was an episode last year that we released with Carl Hiesman, and he told a story about being at the dinner table with his business partner and some potential investors. And he thought things were going great. And then the potential investor says, I have no interest in being your essentially marriage counselor between you and your business partner. You guys have some things to work out. No, thank you. That was a great story. And he provided some tactical advice on how to avoid that. We'll link to that previous episode in the description here. Max, number 4 and 5, what do you think is the hardest part about agency life? And then end on a positive note, what do you think is the best part about agency life?
Hardest is the people. The best is the people.
I love it. We've gotten that answer more than a few times here, and I think it's true. As cliche as it can be, it's definitely true for a lot of folks who have been a guest on the show. Speaking of people, final question for you, Max, before we let you go, let people know how to connect with you. Who's someone who's had a positive impact on your career within agency life as a business owner yourself that you want to thank or mention? Could be someone who's impacted you personally, or someone, who's maybe been a digital mentor or something like that, who's impacted that you would suggest people follow, check out, or maybe just someone you want to thank.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she creates a lot of content, but definitely deserves a shout out. Katrina Bucell, she's been my number 2. I delegated delegation a long time ago. It's the reason I can play golf and I hang out with my kids. Everybody needs a solid number 2, a Batman, a Robin to your Batman. I call that out in the book. So big shout out to Katrina, and shout out to all the the number 2s out there. The integrators, if you're an EOS follower, shout out to the integrators.
Yep.
But mentors. I mean, Steve Lashansky, David Baker. People that have been super generous with their time and been on my show tons of times, and they're incredibly smart. So
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for delivering some great value, some as expected rants, going off on some of the things that you just see wrong with agencies and where they can actually take advantage of the opportunities that are in the market. Disruption is all around us, and if, as you say, disruption really precedes the opportunity to sell strategy, then man, there's nothing but opportunity for listeners today. So I hope you take that away as a listener, or if you're watching this on YouTube, hopefully that's been encouraging. We'll link down in the description to the books that we mentioned from Max, as well as those that he shouted out towards the end of this episode. Max, if anybody is not yet connected with you or following your content, how would you suggest they do so?
Max Traylor, LinkedIn.
I love it. Easy enough.
LinkedIn's
well,
my
thank you
spot.
so much, man. We have been in each other's LinkedIn feeds for a while. First time we got to record some content together, and it did not disappoint. Thanks for being our guest on Agency Life today.
Cheers.